Hello, this is a contribution from Kuzu Consult to the Algorand ecosystem by Stephen Sunday and Seth Michael. Kuzu Consult is a blockchain consultancy firm based in Nigeria. In this presentation, we will learn how to develop a centralized application in the form of a UWP desktop app using the .NET framework to buy books using the Algorand network on the blockchain. So right here I have my Visual Studio 2019 open. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. Okay, so right here we can see a list of template options for us available. Let's go ahead and search for UWP, and then we can see the blank app for Universal Windows platform. Click on it and click on next. So in this configuration section, let's go ahead and name the project. I'm going to name this Algorand Bookstore. After naming your project, click on create. So go ahead and select the target version for the platform you want to target. I'm going to leave everything here by default as it is, and then click on OK. Okay, so right here we can see that our project has created successfully and is ready. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to connect our application with the Algorand network. We're going to install the Algorand SDK into our desktop application. So let's head over to the package manager console right here below. Click on it and run the following command. Okay, so we have a successful install. Let's head over to our project dependencies and search for Algorand. So we can see it right here. The package has successfully installed into our application. So the next thing we're going to want to do is to design how our application will look like and then apply the functionalities as to how our application will operate. So let's head over to our main page.xaml, double click on it. Okay, so our application, the main page.xaml has popped up and is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and split this into vertical split so we can have the form section separate from the code section, which is the XAML page. So let's head over to the toolbox. This is where we're going to drag and drop the necessary buttons or tools needed for application to run. Okay, so from our toolbox, let's go ahead and search for checkboxes. Click on it and drag it into the form. So we have one checkbox. Let's do it again. Drag on that checkbox and then drag another checkbox. Okay, so let's bring in a button. Alright, so we can go ahead and close the toolbox. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly redesign this. I'm going to make them horizontal, and then I'll bring this button down a little bit and then bring in the checkbox together with the rest in alignment. Alright, then the button will be below, okay, somewhere here. So having done this, let's head over to the XAML section, and then this is going to be the name signifying what the type of checkbox we have, or which text box is different from the other. So I'm going to name this Algorand book, and then this is going to be about 5 algos, and then I'm going to call this master DeFi, that's for decentralized finance book, and this is going to be 10 algos. And then for the third checkbox, I'm going to call this Algorand for beginners, and this is going to be 15 algos. And then this button, I'm going to rename it to something different, maybe payments. Alright, so having done this, let's go ahead and launch the application to see how it looks like. So to start the application up, let's navigate to Debug and start the application without debugging. Okay, so our Windows application is up. Alright, so this is what and how our application looks like. Everything looks good. The checkboxes are working. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is to implement the functionality of what will happen whenever we click the payment button. Go ahead and close this. Okay, so let's head back into our form, and then let's go ahead and zoom it in a little. Double click on the payment button in the form. This will take us to the code behind, or the CS section. That's the class file of our code to implement what will happen when the button is clicked. So this is where the button click event is. Okay, so let's head back into our form. We're going to add one more thing. So let's go to view and then head over to the toolbox. We're going to add a text field in which the user trying to make a purchase of a book will input his or her account address, which will then be debited and then funded to the owner of this book. So to do that, let's search for text box. Drag the text box down just above the payment button. Okay, so having done that, let's go ahead and close the toolbox. Alright, everything is perfect. So we're going to go back into the I'm going to go ahead and remove this first. We don't need this text right here. So let's go back to the main page.xaml.cs. Okay, so just before we do that, before we head there, let's go ahead and change the properties of our checkboxes. So click on it and right click on the checkbox you want to make changes to. Okay, so let's head over to the properties section here. Click on it and then click on the book or the checkbox you want to make changes to, and then click on the properties right here. So I'm going to name this Algorand book. And then for the second book, I'm going to name this Master DeFi. And then I'll do the same thing for the third book. And then beginners, I'm going to name that. So having done this, we can then head over to the main page.xaml.cs. Okay, so right here inside the code behind of the button.click event, we have a string displaying the message of what was purchased. We have an integer representing the amount of whatever will be purchased. We then have a text box displaying, if the text box is empty, it's going to display or return an error message saying we cannot make an empty transaction, which will be displayed in a dialog box. Else, if a checkbox has been checked and it's true, for the Algorand book, which is about 30 algos, it's going to be deducted. Let's go ahead and make the changes. Rather, that's not 30, that's 5, 10 and 15. 5, 10 and 15 algos. So let's make these changes. We have 5 here and then 10 and then this is 15. Okay, so if the Algorand book is checked, our amount is going to increase or increment by 5, and then the message will be displayed in the Algorand book. We also have a master DeFi book, which is 10, which is also going to increment if it's checked. The same goes for the Algorand for beginners book. Okay, so having done this, we're going to have a total payment, and then containing the amount that was the total amount we have. And then we also have an if statement here, signifying if the checkbox, if the text box is empty or is null, we're going to have a message right here displaying your payment was made with, and then it's going to then display the account address of the user. Okay, so having done this, we're going to have a dialog box which is going to display the message, that's this particular message we have here, containing the details of the transaction. So let's go ahead and make some changes. So let's start by making this asynchronous, and then I'm going to then fix this text box. Let's head back to the main page.xaml. Inside the properties, okay, let's click on this and then head over to the properties, and then I'm going to name this account address. Okay, so we can then head back into this, and then I can make use of the account address. And then wherever we have text box 1, I'm going to change it with account address, or replace it with account address. So for our message dialog, we need the Windows pop-up UI namespace. So go ahead and add or include the namespace. Okay, so go ahead and include this using statement, that's using windows.ui.popups. Okay, so we are done and clear with all the errors we've had. So at this stage, we can go ahead and test the application. Go to debug and debug, start without debugging to run the application. Okay, so our application is up and running. Let's go ahead and click on payment. Okay, so we can see a summary. You cannot make empty transaction. So let's go ahead and tick this book. We should still get the same thing, the same error message. Yes, we cannot make empty transaction. So let's go ahead and input some characters inside of the text box, and this time around it should work. So we can see our total payment is due. We can see the book we have purchased, and the payment was made with accounts, with AA accounts. So let's go ahead and close and add more books. So we can see a total of 15 now, which is this 10 and the 5. Let's go ahead and add another. We should have a total of 30. Okay, so perfect. We can see the list of books also right here. So let's go ahead and close. At this stage, our application is working fine as expected. So let's go ahead and connect it to the Algorand network so that we can make the necessary transactions we need to make. Okay, so right here we have our make transaction here. So the first thing we did was to include the Algorand API address, which is what we have here, the link running on PureStake version 2, and then we have our API token right here. So we then made an instance of our Algorand API, passing in the host and the token, which is this link over here, that's the address, and then the token. Okay, then after that we're going to generate an account, or we're going to create an account through which we're going to use the accounts. So we're going to create two accounts actually. One account is the receiver account and the other is the sender account. Okay, so the first account is the account that will receive the payments, which is the owner of this application. So when we create the account address and the mnemonic key, we're going to pass in the key into this string here, and then right here we have an instance of an account making use of the key, which is the source over here, that's the SRC. Okay, so we then have a transaction parameter response, and then with a try and catch exception in case you come across an error. This is going to make use of the Algorand API instance to get the transaction params. Okay, and then we have a catch in case we come across an error during the course of the transaction. It's going to return this could not get params error for us. So the next thing we have is the amounts over here. So we have our variable algos, utils.algos to micro algos. So we're converting from algos to micro algos, passing in the amounts of whichever book we have or books we want to buy. So right here we have our TX for transaction, making use of the utils, the get payment transaction. Okay, so instead of get payment transaction, we're going to have address from, that's who we're sending from, and then who we're sending to, the amounts, the string containing the message, and then our transaction params. So as of yet, we do not have a receiver address. Okay, so when I hover over it, so we have our address from and then address to. Okay, so who we're sending from and who we're sending to. Okay, so we have a variable containing our signed transaction, passing in the source to get the signed transaction, which is what we have over here for the transaction details. Okay, and then right here we have a try and catch variable containing the ID. This is going to make use of the utils.submit transaction, which is going to pass in the Algorand API instance and the signed transaction that we have over here. Okay, and then a catch exception, API exception error, in case you come across an error during the course of the transaction. So back to this get payment transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new string containing sender. So I'm just going to replace this with sender. Or rather, okay, so let me switch them. Okay, so the person buying, right, which is the address from, will then send the funds to the owner's to the application owner's account address. So this is how it should be. All right. Okay, so let me bring the string. I'm going to cut it, and then I will pass it in here, right here. Okay, so perfect. Okay, we still have an error. Could not define a local parameter. Okay, so to fix this, I'm just going to pass it directly. So the sender in this case is going to be the person trying to make the purchase. So from our form, the design of our form, we have a text box in which an account address will be inputted. So let's go ahead and make use of it. So this is where the account address dot text would be. Alright, so everything is fine. We do not have any errors. So we're going to go ahead and create an account address separately. Okay, so right here I have created a class or a program that will actually generate an account address and a mnemonic key for us connecting with the Algorand network. So this is all we need. Make an instance of your account and then print out your account address and the account mnemonic key. So having done this, I'm going to go ahead and debug and start the application. Okay, so our console application is up, and we should have our account address and the mnemonic key. Okay, so this is our account address. I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and then back inside here I'm going to paste it and comment it out. I'll also copy the mnemonic key, which is starting from here to here, and then I'm going to create another one. So I'm going to cancel this and run the application again. Okay, so I'm also going to copy the account address, and then I'll copy the mnemonic key also, and then paste it right here. So having done this, I'm going to go ahead and copy everything and then head back to our application. So I'm going to go ahead and paste what I've copied below the account instance. Okay, so we have two account details. What we're going to do here is, this is the key that we're going to use to make transactions. So imagine that this is other me, and then this is the receiver. Okay, so I'm two persons at the moment. So we have the me, who is the receiver, and then the other me, who is the sender. Okay, so as a sender, I'm expected to have an account address and a mnemonic key. So as a receiver, we are expected to have only one type of account address, which is supposed to be a constant address that funds will be deposited into whenever a transaction is made. So I'm going to call this receiver, which is going to be a string. Okay, so I'll then pass this receiver into this place over here. I'm going to do this new address and then pass in the receiver. Okay, so I have just passed in there the receiver into where the receiver is supposed to be. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pass in this key right here. Okay, we're going to head back to the main page.xaml and create another text box, or rather, instead of using the text box, we're just going to use the that text field. We're going to just paste in or use the account key, which is the mnemonic key of the person trying to buy, instead of having to put both accounts address and the key. So we can just use the key, and then I'm going to pass this, and this will be, oh no, I'm still going to need both of them. So yeah, head over to the Solution Explorer and then go to the main page.xaml. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and search for another text box, and then paste this beside it, beside the first text box we have. I'm also going to remove the name, and then this will be empty. Okay, so to configure this, I can close the toolbox and then zoom this a little bit. So I'm going to take the payment button down a little bit, and then this second text box will come beneath or below the first text box, somewhere here. Alright, go ahead and save, and then head back into the main page .xaml.cs. Okay, so let's also change the properties of this second text box we just added. This would be key. I'm just going to call this key for representing the mnemonic key. Okay, alright, so this is going to be key the text. Alright, and then we're going to then pass in the account address of the user. So I believe everything is okay now. So we're sending from, we're going to input the text, the address directly from the form, and then we have the receiver already gotten from the back end, which is constant, and then the mnemonic key of this particular user. So I'm going to copy the mnemonic key of the user trying to buy a book. Alright, so at this stage, let's open our browsers. So you can see three links here, or three tabs. This is Algorand TestNet IO Explorer. We can use it to check account details of a particular account. And then we have the Algorand dispenser, which can then be used to fund multiple accounts, or to fund different account addresses running on the testnet. So back into our code. Alright, for the receiver, I'm going to go ahead and copy the address so we monitor what is being done. So after copying the address, in the view over here, we can search by address. So we can just paste in the address we copied and then click on the search button. So let's do the same thing for the other account's address, and that's this one, the person we're sending from. Okay, so let's head back to the browser, and then on the second tab right here, let's paste in the address and search. So back in the first one, we can see the address over here. We can see the balances, which is 0 rewards, 0 transactions, and the same thing with this one also. So let's go ahead and copy this address again. So this is the address we're going to use to buy a book. So instead of the Algorand dispenser, go ahead and click on this checkbox to confirm, and also verify. Then paste in the account address and then hit on the dispense button. This will dispense micro algos of funds into the account. So we can see a good status of 200, which signifies success. So by the time we head over here, we should see our balance. Okay, we can see the balances right here. That took about 4 seconds, which is that's how fast it takes to make transactions on the Algorand network. So yeah, we have our transaction was successful. We funded the account. So let's head over to this one. Everything, we're not going to fund these accounts directly from the Algorand dispenser. So back in our application, let's go ahead and run the application. Click on debug and start without debugging. Okay, so our application is up and running. Alright, so let's head back to the app and copy our account address. Let's go ahead and paste in the address here, and then also copy the mnemonic key, and then paste it here. So we can click on this book, the Algorand book, and then click on the payments button. Okay, so perfect. Everything worked like we wanted. We can see a summary, the book we purchased, the total amount, and then your payment was made with this account address. So let's close it and head back to the browser to check the account balance. Okay, so back in the browser, it seems our transaction did not work. So let's head back into the code and then make the changes directly from there. So I'm going to copy this, which is the mnemonic key, and then I'll pass it in here. And then for this address over here, who we're sending from, okay, so from this account, go ahead and copy it and then paste it here. And then the address we're sending to, which is the receiver, everything is okay, I believe. Alright, so then let's go ahead and run the application again. Close this one and then debug, and then start without debugging. Okay, so let's go ahead and select the checkboxes and then copy the account address and the mnemonic key like we did earlier. Okay, so go ahead and click on the payment button. Mind you, the mnemonic key is being displayed publicly here because this is for demo purposes and will not be used for production or for anything serious. So I'll advise you, if you're going to follow along, if you're going to create one for yourself, you should try as much as possible to keep your mnemonic key private, because with your mnemonic key transactions can be made. That is all one needs to make transactions with your account. So try as much as possible to keep your mnemonic key private. So while the payment is processing, let's head back to the browser and see what is happening. Okay, so our application closed and I just realized we have a typo. This is slice, not lice. We forgot to pass in the S, which is why it did not work. So let's go ahead and try it one more time. Start without debugging. Okay, check the two books, head back and then copy the this is the key, the mnemonic key. I'm going to paste this here, and then I'll also copy the account address. And then paste it here. Click on payment. Okay, so right here we can see that we have successfully been debited, and we were debited an amount of 15 algos, which was what we selected from the two checkboxes, the 10 for book and then the 5 for the other book, making a total of 15. So we can see that we have been debited and everything was successful. So now let's head back and then check the account address that was funded. Okay, so right here we can see the funds that was added 2 minutes ago, which is a transaction that was made here about 2 minutes ago also, and then this was 54 minutes ago when we created the account address. So we have successfully done what we wanted to do and everything worked perfectly fine. This is a contribution from Kuzu Console to the Algorand ecosystem by Steven Sunday and Seth Michael. Okay, so before we close, I actually want to take note of some of the changes that was made. So instead of this if account address or text is not equal to empty, and then I then copied and pasted the earlier code snippets that we had above inside of it over here. So we have the Algorand API and then the token, we have the instance over here, we have the API instances that get supply. We'll be able to get the total Algorand supply online and the total Algorand supply. So right here we made use of the transaction params using the API instances to get the latest block and the last round. Right here we have the transaction parameter response, which is a trans params which we made use of over here with the Algorand API instance, the transaction params, we had a try and catch exception in case we come across any error, and then the key of the account we created, and then this is the account address, then this is the receiver account. So, and then from the books we're selecting, we want to get the amounts based off whatever books we select to get the total, which was why we had 15 for selecting 2 books, one of 5 algos and the other of 10 algos. So we have our get payment transactions, we have the source address, which is who we're transferring from, and then the receiver who we're transferring to, the algos, which is the amounts, the pay message, and then the transaction params.